So I just wanted to get on here before church this Sunday morning and talking about how the Chicago Bears have taught the NFL a lesson, or they continue to teach NFL GMs a lesson, because there's two things I want to cover today. The first thing is a misconception that's showing up everywhere, and it kind of stems from the Chicago Bears releasing Tyler Scott and Zach Pickens. You guys know who these two guys are. They're two day 2 draft picks from just 2 years ago, and all sorts of nonsense being like GM Ryan Poles can't draft. What is he doing? Is there a curse after the first round for the Chicago Bears? So I'm going to turn that on its face as false. I'm going to get into that big time later in this video and show that people just need to chill out on this rhetoric. And then also, I want to talk about cap management. And this is where the Chicago Bears have really outpaced the competition here, because the NFL is literally full of teams giving millions of dollars to players who aren't on their rosters anymore. And after I cover this, I'm going to get to the GM Ryan Poles can't draft problem, okay? So stick with me here. Seriously, though, I want to talk about how the Bears have taught a masterclass on cap management. And GM Ryan Poles, he gets tons of credit. He's done a great job. But most notably, Vice President of Football Administration, Matt Feinstein, he's behind a lot of it too, and it's important to give him props as well. So now, basically, we just saw more than 1,000 total players get released, waived, or shelved with an injury designation just this last Tuesday on final cutdowns to get to the 53, right? And while that mostly included undrafted free agents, non-vested veterans, there were also some veterans that were cut loose, and the team is still paying them. And I think as far as assessing a GM, we've got to be completely honest, and we've got to be completely fair, and not just look at the draft. We got to look at whether our GM is signing bad contracts and bringing bad players in, and then the team really paying for it later in hamstrung dead cap numbers. So it's just one big Excel sheet, I guess. Since the Chicago Bears pay the least amount of money to players that are no longer on this team. So this is really interesting. The San Francisco 49ers, they're the worst at this, $96.6 million. The New Orleans Saints, constantly in cap hell, they're at $90 million. In Philly, they're at $80 million. Perhaps they have an excuse. They just won the Super Bowl. They went into win now mode, but that is so much dead cap space. Just a lot of red on their ledgers, a lot more than other teams. But if you look at Chicago, the Chicago Bears are sitting there with only $5 million. And the Colts have $5 million. The Bengals surprisingly have $11 million. But mostly that's because they don't pay anyone, right? So we're looking at Spot Track here. They track the money situation of all the teams, and they release a list of dead cap leaders every year. They just released this week. And that's essentially a list of teams who are paying the most money for players not currently on their roster. Let's look at it again. So I don't think it's like a measurement of current success necessarily, but you can see by 2 of the 3 teams I previously mentioned. We're talking about San Fran, right? We're talking about the Saints. They're paying the least amount for players not currently on the roster when you look at the Bears as a contrast. And that's all while building a team full of talent that's expected to compete as soon as 2025. And they're not constantly hamstrung with the salary cap, with all this money being paid to players that are no longer on the team. I'm telling you, this is a really good sign of competent cap management and a really good GM, and we should be happy about this. Uncle Sam always comes around, right? And the Bears are in incredible position for that very reason. Once again, paying the least amount for players no longer on their roster. So I think GM Ryan Poles, I think he's done an absolute tremendous job in this respect. But there's also some negatives that go into it, because here's something that gets thrown around a lot. And on this article, I think it's just lazy reporting, because the Bears are actually saving money because of consistent whiffs in the NFL draft. That's what an article had to say. This article that I'm going by, that I got the cap hits from, it's absolutely crazy that this is saying that. I'm not even going to go to that. Let's just move on. We're looking at, this article argues that the Bears don't have a lot of dead cap, because they're not drafting well, that they're not keeping their players to get to that second contract. And it's absolutely not true, because everything past the first round, even the second round in the NFL draft, is essentially a crapshoot. And I'm going to get into some numbers to support that. But just look at the players that they have. They've acquired offensive lineman Joe Tooney, wide receiver DJ Moore, defensive lineman Montez Sweat, linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. We've gotten Edwards via free agency. It's like, as far as free agents, contributing to dead money on this cap, you're looking at Keenan Allen as only the real whiff, but he isn't costing us anything. There's no dead cap space for him. Chicago hasn't absolutely crushed the draft in every single round, and it's too early to judge on Caleb Williams, wide receiver Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden. But I think safe to assume that these players are all going to be hits for all intents and purposes. And we're not even thinking about Shamar. So it's safe to say that the organization is still kind of sketchy from a couple rounds in the draft from 21 and 23. But the Bears cut a ton of those guys. It doesn't seem to count towards the dead cap at all as far as failed draft picks. So let's kind of get at this, because the guys at Sports Mockery, they did a fantastic job showing the laziness of this reporting, and I want to talk it through. I'm trying to have coherent thoughts here. It is early on Sunday, and yes, I'm a pastor. I'm just about to go to work for church, so bear with me here a little bit. I just wanted to get on here and talk about these misconceptions that people have about the Bears lately. So I don't think the Bears fans should be worried about GM Ryan Poles at all, because let's get down to Tyler Scott and Zach Pickens. They're day two draft picks from just 2 years ago, and taking a step back and unpack what's actually happening here. So are the Bears in trouble? Did GM Ryan Poles really screw up his job? Did he not get the blue chips that he's supposed to get in these day two picks? Because I'm going to tell you, the NFL draft is a crapshoot. And fans hate hearing this, but the NFL, it's like a casino, right? These guys explained it so well. If you're picking in the top 20, you're dealing with blue chips. Almost every team can hit those out of the park. And the GMs that can't hit their first round draft picks, they're gone very, very quickly. But as far as third rounders, they hit just 22 to 36% of the time. That's league-wide. That means most of them fail, right? 22 to 36% of a hit rate. Fourth rounders, then that comes down to 16 to 20% of a hit rate. And then overall day two, rounds 2 to 3, success hovers around 25 to 35%. So let's remember those numbers. Day two picks, 25 to 35% league-wide is a success rate. And then third rounders hit 22 to 36% of the time. These are really good numbers to remember. So what does cutting a third rounder and a fourth rounder mean after 2 years? It doesn't feel good, right? It feels a little ugly, but we got to look at this statistically before we say that our GM sucks. And don't even get into this Micah Parsons saying that GM Ryan Poles is incompetent because he didn't go after him. We don't want to hamstring our salary cap for years to come, not have these first rounders that should hit every single year for a couple of years. It's just not a good idea. So I'm not going to hear a lot of that. So par for the course, might even be ahead of the curve, because let's look at this. Tyler Scott and Zach Pickens neither produced enough to keep them on the team, right? Not in year three. And in today's NFL, you've got these 2 or 3 years to develop. And if you don't develop, that's just the league. You're not going to stay on the team. So that's where we are with these two guys. I'm not going to go into their statistics. Scott was not impressive. Undrafted free agent Jade Walker, he just flat out beat him out for a roster spot. Absolutely love Jade all day. And Pickens, he went from being a former 5 star athlete, looked like a steal in the 64th overall draft slot, and then just had May college numbers, and that extended to the pros. So let's kind of look at this. So cutting second-year picks. I actually respect second day picks. I actually respect Ryan Poles for not throwing good money after the bad, not being egocentric that, hey, I drafted these players. I'm going to keep them on here out of ego no matter what. That's just the league. So let's look at this statistically. Let's look at Poles' full body of work. So in the 2022 draft, there were 11 picks. So what were the hits here? Kyler Gordon, he's locked in through 28. Jaquan Brisker, Braxton Jones. These guys were hits, right? The miss was Velus Jones, right? The Ferret King, gone after 2 years. But there were some depth picks that were hits here. Elijah Hicks, Dominique Robinson. So the hit rate is about 45.5%. Compare that to league-wide. That's really favorable, right? And then in 2023, you've got 10 picks. The hits are Darnell Wright, Jervon Dexter Sr., Tyreek Stevenson. Okay, so we missed on Pickens and Scott. Got some depth pieces out of that draft, right? Terrell Smith. Sad that he got hurt. Roshan Johnson, Noah Sewell. That hit rate is 50%, still contributing to the team in that draft. The day 2 performance, rounds 2 through 3, get ready for this. That's a 75% success rate. Well above league average. That doubles the league average success rate on day 2 picks. Still think GM Ryan Poles stinks compared to the rest of his peers. Now we've got first round picks. We've got 100% success rate so far. Right, Caleb, Romo, Dunze, we're assuming that those are hits. I really like the Loveland pick. That's yet to be determined, but I think we're good there. So if your GM nails round 1, and he gets solid value later, you're in good shape. And that's 100% what Poles is doing. Poles looks pretty darn good here. His overall hit rate is 47.6, way above standard league expectations. His round 1 is perfect. His value later, highlighted by Braxton Jones in the 5th round, that was his biggest steal. So the league norm for day 2 misses is absolutely brutal. 65 to 80% league-wide for 3rd and 4th rounders. They don't make it in the league. They don't pan out. 65 to 80% failure rate. Even the best GMs mess up here. The job isn't to bat 1,000. It's to maximize round 1 and 2 hits and sprinkle in a couple late round surprises, and you are good. GM Ryan Poles checks all of those boxes. So let's not freak out. Let's see what we have in Ryan Poles as a really good GM. Look at the cap health. Look at the way that dead cap is managed. Look at how these free agents are brought in. And for the most part, they don't fail. We get the worth out of them through their contracts. And he has all of these new contracts lined up. So if they start to not pan out in year 3, the Bears can once again get out of the contracts with very little damage to the team and almost zero dead cap hit. What's not to like? Let's think logically. Let's think statistically. Let's think realistically at what's actually going on and be blessed by GM Ryan Poles. You guys let me know, as you always do in the comments. Bear down, and we will talk soon. Go to church.